Whether you're an atheist or a theist, we all have one thing in common, our humanity, you know. But I've been speaking to someone recently who has the idea that you forfeit your humanity when you embrace one of these positions. And obviously, given the nature of the debates I enter into, I was speaking with a militant atheist, you know, and I don't want atheists to feel all up in arms about this video. It's not an attack on you, it's an attack on a particular character, you know. Maybe an attack is too strong a language. It's a critique of a particular character. I have some information here I just want to share with you. Barbara Haggerty, news reporter and author, has spoken out against this aggressiveness in a particular kind of atheist. She cites Paul Kurtz and says, I consider people like him to be atheist fundamentalists. They're anti-religious and they're mean-spirited, unfortunately. Now, they are very good atheists and very dedicated people who do not believe in God. But you have this aggressive and militant phase of atheism, and that does more damage than good. Now, Paul Kurtz set up this centre of inquiry, which is supposed to foster a secular society based on science, reason, freedom of inquiry, and humanist values, right? But it also hosted this blasphemy contest. Now, as it happens, Paul Kurtz was ousted from his position by a palace coup. He was sort of pushed out of his own foundation there, and it was because of this terrible attitude that sort of painted atheism as this nasty, anti-religious, mean-spirited force in the world, and people like Michael Ruse speak out against Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, right? He says it makes him embarrassed to be an atheist, right? So why does this happen, right? Well, as I say, I've been talking to a guy on a certain video here, and he's been espousing this ideology that, if you're a religious person in any way, then you're a threat, you're a part of a problem, you have a mind that's predisposed to these delusions, and you really need to be taken care of. You need to find yourself out in a wee death camp somewhere. You're not fit to participate in my world, right? And he comes out with all this stuff about enlightened thought and things like this, right? But I took some notes here, right? And I says to him, that's reminiscent of the ignorant statements made by the French atheist Michael Onfray, right? He says something like this, we need to return to the spirit of light, of enlightenment, that gave its name to the 18th century, right? As if, there was no high caliber intellectual discussion before the 18th century, and as Alistair McIntyre points out, as if the Enlightenment project was not a failure in its ability to supply a foundation for morality. As if the Enlightenment took us on an upward path from barbarism to peace, instead of ushering in one violent revolution after another until we reach the depths of human wickedness in the bloodiest century to date, the 20th. Sometimes I wonder about my accent. Enlightenment. See, I'm trying to enunciate properly for the interwebs. Enlightenment. I would usually just say enlightenment, but that may not mean it. Okay. So, right. So there was this conference in California, right? It was called Beyond Belief, right? Science, Religion, Reason and Survival. That was a conference, and it was noted in the New Scientist. It's a magazine, international science magazine, and they covered the story in a special edition, right? Their 15th anniversary, and it gave it the heading "In Place of God," right? So it's this idea of replacing God, right? So it's not just the process of the secularization of the world and this banishment from God from the universe, but it's also this replacement, okay? And apparently no area of human thought or activity other than science is qualified to contribute anything useful, right? But we all understand that science is just a set of disciplines practiced by human beings. So the ultimate objective would appear to be to make these scientists the ultimate arbiters, right, of what is not only to be believed by all human beings, but what's to be worshipped by them, right? Because we're talking about replacing God here, right? So what do we get from that? Totalitarianism, isn't it? Because ultimately it's the scientists who are doing science, so they're basically putting themselves in the place of God. You know, listen to me, you know, listen to, this is what science has told us, you know, right? And it just, it comes back to me, it's this silly notion that somehow if you can take God out the minds of men, all of a sudden, you know, tulips and pansies and flowers are just going to start busting out the ground, and people are going to, you know, just be like, oh, who cares about our differences anymore, you know, everybody, let's just be lovely and free. It's like, what are you talking about? We live in a world where people murder one another over car parking spaces, you know, or if someone cuts in front of you in the queue in a supermarket, we get very upset and it can quickly escalate. We're not seeing the true problem here, you know, that's what it is. And it comes back to that common ground of humanity, you know, and trying to deal with that, you know, and dealing with our interactions with one another. Certainly religion can be a point of tension, right? But this kind of militant atheism is part of the conflict. It's fueling the conflict. It's rocket fuel for conflict. You know, it doesn't solve anything. There needs to be a heart. There needs to be some love, right? If we're kindness, gentleness, selflessness, right? We all know that's true. We all know that's the cure. So many people, you know, we're willing to give it all lip service. We're not willing to walk it out, you know. And if what I would say that I think the best solution would be if we just all pointed to each other and said, hey, are you living that lifestyle? Are you going to be that selfless person? You know, are you going to do that in the name of your God? Are you going to do that in the name of your atheism? You know what I mean? But you know, it takes me to that idea of South Park. You know that episode of South Park where it's like, it's only atheists in the world, but they're all at war with each other over the proper name to call themselves. And there's some otters in there that have evolved to some point of sentience while Cartman is just trying to play the Nintendo GameCube or something like that. You know, it's just a silly idea that atheism's somehow gonna, oh, we're all enlightened and nobody wants to hurt each other anymore. You know, it's a futile notion. I feel it's a silly thing. It's a silly idea. But I also think it's impossible, right? Because ultimately, at some point, children are born into the world, and what they're going to think, and those quiet moments of deep rumination, what's going to come up? I'll tell you. The question, why am I here? Right? What is the purpose of my life? These kind of deep questions, you know, you can try and steer them away from asking them, but maybe, just maybe, they'll have those criminal thoughts in your society and come away with the heresy of theism. And you know, just off the top of my head, I can think of two prominent atheist thinkers who don't even believe in this idea of progress. One of them's John Gray, right? He doesn't believe in this thing called progress. He thinks that's just an illusion, right? Because ultimately there is no hope or aspiration for humanity. And as I can't pronounce their name, Michel Foucault, I wrote a great essay about him once, and that's about it. Or was it Crime and Punishment and all that stuff? But he doesn't believe in progress per se, you know, this idea of the Enlightenment and we're all progressing, it's all going well, you know. He just believes in these changes, this catastrophic change and this turmoil, and how out of that something is produced, so to speak, you know. Maybe somebody with a better understanding will say, that's not what Foucault said, but that's just, you know, that's what I got from it. Now, over here we've got some dirty plates going on, right? And that might be distracting for some of you, but it's there for a reason. It's a comment on society, and what I'm trying to say is human beings are gonna produce dirty plates at some point, right? And one of us, somebody's gonna have to say at some point, you know what, I'm done eating, gonna have a wee bit of fasting going on, and I'm gonna wash the plates. I'm gonna wash the plates, and I just hope that you wash the plates one day. Okay. You know, I like to end these videos on a strong, poignant, just an earth-shattering piece of just you know, information. It's gonna rock your world, and I think that's the bombshell right there. All the best.